I got into the closed beta for Dissidia Duellum. Now, this isn't a scripted video. This is just me giving my thoughts on the game as it currently is. Now, if you just want the short, quick and dirty, I want it to be a good game. I think it has the potential to be a good game. Right now, it suffers from two issues. The first and most glaring issue is the gacha. If you don't have an ultra rare, you don't get to play the video game. You can kind of play the video game in like the single player challenges. You can play the video game in bronze. Past that, either you have ultra rares or you don't. That's just how Duellum works. So, you guys already know, I really don't like gacha systems. I don't like gambling. I don't find it fun to pull a slot machine and have that decide whether or not I can play the video game. I was able to look past this for Opera Omnia because it didn't matter that much. Duellum is a competitive game. Which leads me to problem number 2. Communication issues. The game does a very bad job communicating what it's supposed to be. After talking with people and gathering my thoughts, Duellum wants to be an MMO. It does not communicate that. It does not communicate that, you know, the other players aren't your primary issue. It doesn't communicate that it is a game with objectives. It just puts you in a box. And part of that is to do with the forced tutorial and really railroaded tutorials where you're not allowed to actually interact with the thing. In my experience, do not teach systems, they teach people to mash buttons to get to the game faster. And that's very bad for a game like this because this is a complicated game. Now, that's the quick and easy version. For the rest of the video, I'm just gonna go through the website and I'm gonna talk about what I see and give my thoughts on every point presented. So, let's begin. First of all, big highlight is, yeah, it's Square Enix getting to flex that they are a fashion company. Square Enix does not make video games. They make interactive fashion magazines. Tell me I'm wrong. So, this is the core of what I mean when I say, like, this slide here is what I'm talking about when I say that there's communication issues. 3v3 Team Boss Battle Arena. That phrase. So, this is PvP. This is PvE. Now, on that point alone, people are going to have issues figuring out what they're supposed to prioritize between big guy on the right and the enemy team. This is something that basically everyone in the game's, like, internal messaging system bitched about. I never got timed out for it. Usually when the message about how the monsters are about to win came up, both teams got their shit together and focused on the boss. Because, well, if you time out, both parties lose. It makes sense in context. I'll get to that when I get to the story tab. But it is something where it doesn't feel like it's there to incentivize people to focus on the boss. It feels like it's there to threaten them to focus on the boss, you know? Because losing in this game kinda sucks. For two reasons. The obvious reason of losing sucks because you're losing, which normally is not an issue for me, but I'm gonna be real with you. I had a hard time telling how much I was actually contributing to my team at any given time. And on top of that, you don't get battle pass points if you lose, and there's a battle pass. And story is locked behind the battle pass, at least in the closed beta. And it sucks. And also, loot drops when you have the battle pass are low. I hate it. I don't like battle passes. Because 9 times out of 10, it's shit like this where you need to have it for base functionality. And it sucks. It is selling us the solution to a manufactured problem. Now, this is a lie. This is true. I actually think once you finally hit the point where you're allowed to play the video game, it's quite fun. This is a lie. You see the battle screen on the left here? That is not how you should be playing. Because this is an action game. I have always bounced off of touchscreen action games because they're clunky. And Duellum is clunky. Moving, camera work, attacking, and unique actions are all done by default by just tapping or swiping or, generally interacting with the screen. And that is 4 separate actions linked to not even a button. That's rough. There's an option in the game that I think should not be opt-in. I think it should be opt-out, where it replaces the single nebulous tap into 2 separate regions, one for your basic attack and your unique action, and then another one just for moving around the battlefield. That makes the game tolerable. Unfortunately, that also means you're playing a vertical phone game, a game built for touchscreens in portrait mode, with 2 hands. Now, I do not live in an area with a particularly crowded bus or subways or trains or anything, but I do know that the main advantage that playing a game in portrait mode has is that you can play it on the bus or the train with one hand while the other one is holding on to a pole or handrail. So, when you consider that the camera in this game just sucks in general, and you have to play it with 2 hands, this could have been landscape mode. This could have been a game where you hold your phone sideways, and it probably would have, it wouldn't have fixed any issues, but it would have made the game less awful to just control. However, once you get the high rarity abilities you need to just play the video game, and you switch it to 2-handed mode, yeah, it's actually really fun. It's a little frustrating sometimes, for reasons I'll get to in a bit, but the basic gameplay loop is solid. Actually going into a match, running around the screen, and pressing buttons is it feels good when you're allowed to do it. And I hate that I have to have that qualifier. When you're allowed to play the video game, shouldn't be a qualifier for how good playing the video game is. But here we are. I've heard that the other game by this company, Compass, is similar. I did not play it leading into Duellum. I wanted to be someone who went in totally blind to how these worked. And that's not exactly what happened, but what happened is close enough. A lot of the issues with actual gameplay mostly just comes from the fact that it's a game that you play with other people, and other people do other people things. However, you see how for all three characters it shows in this little thing on the left that they have like 3 URs, 1 SR, and 1 rare. That is basically what you need to do from Silver onwards. Silver. The ranked mode has like 7 tiers, and starting in Silver, you need multiple URs to like keep up with the game. It sucks. I don't like it. But once you do, yeah, it's pretty good. There's a pity system. It exists. It's not great. I preferred what Opera Omnia did, where you just gained points, and you can use those points to just pick the thing you want. Yeah, it's alright. So the story. The story is, well, no, we'll get to that later. Let's go to the actual, like, system tab first. So, there is one other wrinkle with the gameplay, and that's Bravery. Now, I have played Dissidia since its initial inception, back in, like, 2005, I think it is. Because I was one of those obnoxious kids who thought that the PSP was going to kill the DS, and I basically grew up with Final Fantasy. And, like, Square Enix games in general. Like, the first 2 games I actually fully beat as a kid were, like, maybe not the first 2, but 2 of the first games I actually beat as a kid were, like, Chrono Cross and Final Fantasy X. Okay, I was screwed from the beginning. Oh, and Kingdom Hearts 1. But, so I'm quite familiar with how Bravery usually works. How it usually works is you get a certain number of points that you use as a resource to do cool shit. You have abilities that steal these points from other people, and abilities that expend these points to deal damage. That's a cool system. I like that system. That's not what Duellum is. Duellum, instead, it is a fixed meter. You fill up the gauge, you max out your points with all 9s, and then you are allowed to damage the boss. Now, I don't think that this is another case of you are allowed to play the video game. There is other things you do. So, like, what we're showing here, the bulk of most of the game is going to be running around doing this. Killing monsters, purifying crystals, dealing with the enemy team. And then, you press your activate cool shit mode button, and this is the problem slide. So here's the thing. When you activate your Brave Burst, and you go into the I can damage the boss now mode, what you should do and what the game tells you to do are not the same thing. So, what the game tells you to do is to have your party coordinate multiple bursts, just activate all of your abilities, and then run away. This is not a good idea. You should have one person, preferably someone with, like, a damage-focused unique ability, or like a mobility-focused one. Like, the three shown in these tabs are good for this job. You should have one person in your party where their whole thing is they're going to just glue themselves to the boss the moment they get burst, and just sit on it with basic attacks or their unique ability, and not use their cooldowns until everyone else is ready to come in and do their thing. That is actual optimal play. However, the reason why the game doesn't communicate this, and it's one of a handful of communication problems, the reason why the game doesn't communicate this is because, well, if you activate your abilities, I wonder if it talks about it later. It doesn't look like it. If you activate your abilities in tandem with your party, you get a damage multiplier. And that's kinda cool. You get, by doing cool shit with your buddies, you use the power of friendship to deal more damage. I like that. The issue is that it incentivizes players to only deal with the boss when the stars align. This is a competitive game where you have to fight other people. That's not gonna happen very much. But that's fine. That's a small thing, I think. Like, that's something where, because there is an in-app messaging system, players can tell each other about it. Assuming they're actually fighting the boss. A problem that everyone had to deal with, but me not as much, is, like, players running off to fight other players and ignore the boss, like I said. But it's fine. As for abilities, they're cooldown abilities in a gacha game. I've said my piece about them. They are implemented in a really stupid way, and I don't like it. And characters have roles. These roles aren't that set in stone. Like, characters will do things that might not be immediately obvious for their role, but generally speaking, melees are your big damage dealers. Ranged characters are backline attackers. Agile is like harassers, and support is support. Support is a little bit different in this game than in other, like, team-based games. I don't think there's, like, a dedicated healer. The closest is, like, Krile, but I'll talk about that when we get to characters. Customization. This game does not have customization. Allow me to explain why customization doesn't actually exist. See, what character and what outfits you have for that character are tied to a gacha. Your abilities are tied to a gacha. As we saw in the previous thing, what abilities you can actually bring with are tied to getting good luck in the gacha. For a lot of characters, 4 of your 5 abilities are chosen for you because a character's full kit takes up 4 slots. And for most characters, you want their 4 abilities. There are some where that's not necessarily the case. Lightning, for example, one of her abilities is a speed boost, but her unique ability, increases her attack, her, movement speed while it's charging, so it's kinda overkill. It's good to have anyway, but you don't really need it. However, this leads to a situation where this game has the same amount of customization that NT did. Arguably less if you were a Vaughn main back in NT. In general, this game feels like a discount, and mobile phone port for NT. There's your real, quick review. Do with that information what you want. But it does lead to a situation where you're given a lot of choices, but also you're not really given a lot of options to choose. So, yeah. As for the story, Square Enix is well known for their storytelling. The story of Duellum has no hook. I am going to assume that is because the closed beta did not want to showcase very much of the game's story. But you start with a scene of Cloud chasing after Sephiroth and then saving a small child from monsters. And every other story cutscene is little slice of life things like this. I can rather firmly say I don't care. It's very weird to come across a Square Enix title, let alone a Final Fantasy game, where I have to say the gameplay is better than the story. The story is not good. A lot of people said that was 15. I don't necessarily agree. A lot of people said that was NT. I probably agree. But it's weird when it does happen. Characters. I'm not going to go over all of them because I only really got to play half of the cast. But I'm going to give quick thought. So I'm just going to say right off the bat, Kain, Terra, and Zidane I have no experience with. I cannot touch on them. I just don't really know enough. But let's go through the rest of the characters. Just in-game order. So Warrior of Light, he's a good example of what I mean when I say that support isn't what you think it is. Also, yeah, on the website you can switch between source accurate outfits and they're modern outfits. It's kind of nice. I'm going to be using it like an ADHD button while I talk about this. So Warrior of Light, here's the thing with him. He is a support unit because by just kind of having him around, the game is easier. You deal more damage if you're decently close to him. And if he hangs back and doesn't do anything for a bit, you take less damage. I don't know if, you have to hold that for that to stay the case. I don't know if it's just, it pops an ability, and that's a thing you have on a timer for a bit. Not a lot of people played him. I didn't really test him out. But that's kind of his thing. I didn't play him much because the actual character I played support for, like, and the character I played the most, because I clicked with her a lot, is Krile. I really like her modern outfit. I'm just gonna stick on that. Krile's whole thing is that if I hang back out of the way and just camp on the objectives and the monster crystals, I make everyone else's life easy. Or at least I make everyone else's life last longer. This is the ability that I didn't get to see very much. Here's the thing. Only one person can purify a crystal. This is not a increased bravery by the team when someone purifies a crystal. It's when I purify the crystal. So if someone else purifies the crystal while I'm right the fuck next to it, we actually end up in a slight bravery deficit. We gain resources slower. If you are teaming up with a Krile, please let her purify the crystals. That is literally her job. But it's the other two things Krile has going for her that makes life easier. I didn't touch on abilities much with Warrior of Light. I don't really know his abilities that well, and I'm intentionally, like, not pulling up anything while doing this, so that this is just inauthentic off the top of my head, you know? I probably should have done a script for this, but hey, we're way too late for that. Krile's whole thing is she can give her bravery to her allies, and most of her unique abilities are either some form of healing or boosting the damage output of her party. Let Krile do her job, and you don't die and do way more damage and can engage with the boss more often. And the one ability she has that isn't a support thing is this giant fuck-off AoE that just fucking nukes everything on screen. It's great. I love it. Krile was my main. Cloud. He's Cloud. He does extra damage to bosses. I don't know why Climb Hazard is called Ascension. This is not the Ascension ability from the remake. This is Climb Hazard from, like, the original game. I don't know why it's called Ascension. But his whole thing is he just does a lot of damage, and then he has a move where he can approach really fast while doing damage, and then he has abilities that just do damage. He is very Unga. They specifically designed Cloud around the idea that there are going to be a handful of people who play this game that do not know that any Final Fantasy other than 7 exists. It's really weird that the Final Fantasy series started with 7. So, Rinoa. This is the only character where I got her full kit. I don't really like Rinoa as a character, but she's kind of fun in this, in a way that I think kind of exemplifies Duellum's problems. So, her unique stuff, it doesn't really matter much. The passive is alright. It's kind of a fun reference to how, like, sorceresses work in 8. Her teleport is a teleport. Like, this is just you aim the thing and then you go there, and it lets you just zip across the map really fast. And that's alright. This is not why you play Rinoa. You play Rinoa for one of her 2 URs specifically, and that is Angel Wing. Now, if we go back to here, we can actually see the artwork for Angel Wing. Or was it... Oh wait, no, I think it was in system, never mind. So I'm just going to put that on screen while I talk about Rinoa. So, Angel Wing does one of 2 things depending on how far along in the match you are. The first 2 times you pop this, all it does is it increases a counter by 1. You want to pop these first 2 activations as soon as possible, because the 3rd time you activate it is when its real ability kicks in. And it's that it activates her Sorceress mode. You get a huge across-the-board damage multiplier and a full heal. Sorceress mode is retained between lives, and the next time you use Angel Wing for the rest of the match, you get the full heal back. So this button is literally, like, after you've primed it, this button makes you invincible, and then it makes you immortal. Dying is gay. Now, the rest of her abilities, well, her R is a big AoE. All around her that just kind of pushes, that just makes everyone go away for a bit. Oh wait, no, that's her N rarity. Her R is this cone in front of her that just shreds through health. And her other UR makes her invincible and then causes a meteor shower in like a pretty big area in front of her. So Rinoa was my favorite character to play as for just sitting on the for just sitting on the boss mashing attack. Because you warp around the field, taking all of the crystals, you pop Brave Burst, you mash attack on the boss, and if your health gets low for literally any reason, you pop Angel Wing to go back to full health, activate the rest of your abilities while you're at it for just this crazy stream of damage, and then you go back to teleporting around the map, getting more bravery. And by sheer accident, you will probably end up killing someone. Because that is just how Rinoa works. Rinoa is emblematic of this game's problems. Because, yes, that sounds fun. It was fun. She is very OP when fully online. And whether or not she can be fully online depends solely on if you pull this ability. If you do not pull this ability specifically, Rinoa is playing without her primary gameplay mechanic. Thanks, Square. So, Lightning. Lightning, she's kind of built around this. Blitz. When paired with Bright Blaze, this makes her the queen of taking objectives. She will have increased movement speed while the button is held down, which, when paired with her SR that increases her speed further, makes her the fastest thing in the game. And then if you release the button at the right time, you will hit all of the enemies. or all of the monsters near a crystal, and then 1 tap of the button per enemy, you clear them, you take the crystal, you move on to the next one. That's Lightning's gameplay. And you know what? I like it. I think it was kind of a fun gameplay loop. The main deviation Lightning is going to have in this gameplay comes in if there aren't really any other crystals to snag. In which case, either you take advantage of the fact that she is the Flash, and you just chase down enemies already at low health and pick them off, or you, like, burst, run up to the boss, do her, like, shooty spin in its face, and then just wail on it and blow it up when other people come in to do that. That's Lightning. Very simple character, pretty engaging playstyle. She is the character you pick if you want to be that DPS main. So the last two I did not get to play as, but I did fight them enough. So, Gaia. I hate her. I don't know what it is she does. In 14, I am yet to encounter her. I don't really know what her abilities are in Duellum. But it felt like if she, like, looked at me kinda funny and sneezed in my direction, I was dead. Sometimes before registering she was near me. I don't know what happened. Just every time this lady was in my general vicinity, I died. That's it. All of my health stolen by Goth Girl. And finally, Prompto. Prompto, he's pretty emblematic of what I mean by, like, how being in a role doesn't necessarily decide playstyle. So, ranged characters, generally speaking, are supposed to tag team with either your melee or your support and assist them as a pair. Prompto does not do this. Prompto has some of the highest DPS in the game, thanks to Rapidus SMG. Prompto is the single best character for what I was talking about with my point of how once you're in Brave Burst, you should just stay there. Because if you just activate Brave Burst and sit just outside the range of the boss and hold your finger on the screen, he is going to shred through its health. And that's before considering his unique abilities. With one of his URs, just being, hey, I'm going to deal like 1 billion hits of damage in a cone in front of me. Like a cracked out version of the cone I mentioned Rinoa having. And then once your team is ready to come in and do their big thing, well, he gets a bonus for that, because he's a bro. I actually think that's kind of a cool way to implement link chains from 15. I never unlocked him. I didn't really get to play as him. But I can tell that him and Cloud are going to be the two best characters at just sitting on the boss and swinging at them. Just because of how they're set up. So yeah. That was my experience with Duellum, just in general. There isn't much footage here. I would show, like, let you guys listen to the background music, but it's actually louder than I am. But I think the music is really good. I think it's a really good soundtrack. It's... The aesthetics of Duellum are on point. And it's kind of just the aesthetics. Everything else is like... There's an asterisk to everything else I like about it. Also, let's elaborate more on the gacha. This game has 4 gacha systems. It sounds like in the full game release, it's going to be 6. I think that was here. Because, well, we don't really know how weapons are going to be distributed yet. But we do know that this mechanic is going to be a thing. This might be tied to a gacha. Weapon customization might be tied to a gacha. But in the beta, there were 4 things tied to a gacha. Abilities, characters. After every match, you would get like a time-locked chest thing. I've had most people tell me they don't consider that a gacha, but the difference between a gacha and a loot box is negligible to me. They refer to it as a stamina system. It's both. It can be both. And something that is not brought up at all. Job medals. You can see it as if you look in the bottom right, you can see it as an option here. Job medals. Every character can equip 3 job medals. Job medals have 3 components. Color, rarity, and the actual job itself. You do not control any of these. And getting new job medals is tied to a separate resource from everything else that you can only get by pulling for characters. So, this means that one of the... And, like, job medals, I'll admit, it's, like, the least impactful one. Probably. But, in order to get a resource for a gacha, you have to pull a separate gacha that I don't think should exist. And I don't... It sucks. Also, something notable here that should have been mentioned in abilities is you have to level up abilities. You see the little green stuff there? Those are growth eggs. You need growth eggs to level up abilities, and leveling up abilities doesn't make the ability stronger, it increases the stat bonus from having the ability equipped. And equipping abilities kind of comes in like, there are 2 decks for it. There's the one you actually bring into battle, and then there's a support deck that you just equip them for their stats. You can't farm growth eggs, Astrisk. The only way to farm growth eggs is to bring a super rare into a match with you that heals your character by 10% and grants 3,000 growth eggs. So, the only way to make your character stronger is to use an ability that effectively gives you a dead ability slot. Now, if you have your 3 URs, like between the 2 for your character and 1 generic, you can overcome this. Note how I have to say that. And if you bring your character's full kit with you, that means you have just how the character normally works, and then a dead slot that's only for farming. I wouldn't quite say it's a pay-to-grind mechanic, but we're getting close. We're getting close. There's also something that's also not talked about here is that there's like a gift ticket system where you can buy, where it gives you a unique resource you can use to just buy, like, draw tickets for other players. I actually think that's cool. I would be praising it if it was in any other game. Yeah, I want Duellum to be good. I think it has the capacity to be good. I think that it wouldn't take very much for it to be a good game for what it's trying to be. The problem is that there's so many caveats. Hell. One change I would make, if you put it on console or on PC with the camera expanded out sideways, or like you give some detailed stats on the sides you can use to check on like your team and your enemies, and just play it with a proper controller so that you could like easier move around, use your abilities, manipulate the camera. That alone would solve most of my problems. Like, pretty much every issue I have with the base gameplay could just be solved by doing that, for all I know. Like, yeah, it'd still be bad at communicating, like, what you're supposed to do and how much you're actually helping your team and all that. But, like, no, that alone would make a lot of difference. It's just... It's this. It's this right here. If I could make the one change I would make, if I could only make one change to this game, is remove the character gacha and replace it with, like, remove the character gacha and battle pass and replace it with, like, every individual character having their own, like, reworking the battle pass systems into being tied to each character so that they have, like, a growth system similar to NT. And then the extra costumes you can sell separately, like in Opera Omnia. Hell, you could even tie it into the solo challenges, because the game has solo challenges. They kind of jump scare you into thinking they're not solo challenges by having it so that, like, the enemy team has real player names instead of CPU. Again, this game sucks at communicating with the player. But you could even tie it into the challenges and make it so that you unlock the character's full kit through those two systems. And, you know, the other URs, like Minwoo isn't in the game, but he has a UR. Those could still be offered through the gacha. You gotta make your money somehow. I'm not asking for the fucking moon here. But that alone would do a lot to just fine-tune the systems. And when Square Enix put out their survey, I tried to be as polite and professional as possible when conveying the things I mentioned in this video. Now, this is my YouTube channel. I'm gonna be off the cuff about it. That's just how I am. When the game comes out, or the next, like, beta comes out, I'm going to poke at it again. And I'm going to report back my findings. And if it still sucks, I'll let you guys know. If they changed anything, I'll let you guys know. If they fix it and it's good, I'll definitely let you know. I'm invested in the development of this game because it can be good. I would prefer if it was just a co-op game, admittedly. But all I'm going to ask is, until the full thing is out, don't discount it for being a team-based mobile game. That's just the reality of the industry we live in. I hate it too. I would prefer a console release. I don't even necessarily think we need, like, Duodecim HD remaster like most people say. It would be good. It would sell like crazy. It's what people are asking for, at least in the West. But I think there is a good game hidden here. Square just needs to do the little bit of extra work to bring it out.